Hello, everybody, and welcome to our April Roundtable for the London Webfest 2021 season. As always, I am Saul Marron. I'm the Festival Director for the London Webfest. And with us, with our Q&As, we'll be talking with some of the best talent of the festival circuit right now. This time, it is the turn of our writer-directors, which we've invited from our official selections from this month's London Webfest. Now, I'll be moderating the whole thing, but don't forget, as always, we want to hear from you as well. You can pose your questions to our panel just by adding them to the chat. Joining the roundtable is our March guest judge, BAFTA award-winning director and lovely Scots, Morag McKinnon. And in fact, I think I'll bring her in right now so you can all get acquainted before we get going. Morag, hello. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's a pleasure. I feel so honored to have been able to kind of see all these amazing films that have been coming through in this time period. You know, it's really
absolutely thrilled to have you. How have you been getting on with, I mean, a large selection of, different genres from short films to animation to web series. How have you been finding kind of tackling the vast pile of them?
Well, I mean, it's really stimulating, and it's I think it's really hard because, there's some things where you just can't, how can you quantify, how good something is, because it's like, things are good in so many different ways. So I think it's really difficult. It's a massive challenge, and you have to work your way through it, because there's some things which just kind of, they shine in a very unique way, but, there's just different qualities that you have to look at, and it's a real challenge, I have to say.
I mean, we've been chatting recently, and you've been doing an amazing job, and especially with that specific thing, which is how do you break apart what can be fantastic storytelling and then something that is visually beautiful? Where does that line lie of what makes a fantastic short, of what makes a beautiful piece? And it's been great to hear your thoughts on them all. And as always, we're just blown away by the scope of work that is on show. And especially it's been a difficult past year for, I think, a lot of people to sort of see that talent still come through. We are just absolutely thrilled to have you, a lady of your caliber, a director of your caliber. It's been amazing to have you glance your eye over those.
Well, I think the one thing that came across to me when I was watching is how necessary storytelling is to human beings. Mm-hmm. Actually, that was the one thing I got overall, was just that, especially in these times of pandemic where we're not, having the usual social interactions. And actually, I felt really filled up with a sense of connection to all the different stories in so many different ways. And I went, gosh, this really, really underlines the importance of storytelling around the world, because it's a way of connecting. It's a way of having that dialogue around the world. So, it's like not everybody gets to get a prize. I know I've had lots of times when I didn't get a prize, but you see, actually, what I want to say is that's not the point. The prize is to make the film. Mm-hmm. The prize is to communicate, with a larger audience. And I think, that's what's been a huge privilege to me, to see all these, different types and forms of filmmaking, and it made me feel connected to a wider world. And I think that's the key point that is so important, about film festivals like this, which are keeping people connected, which are keeping types of storytelling alive. And I was so glad to see, the music video section, which wasn't what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting pop music or whatever. Yeah. And it was much more kind of arts-based or political. And I thought it was really, really powerful to experience that.
I think, yeah, that's right. When we first introduced that category, we were quite shocked by that, because I think we all presumed, that's a beautifully shot rock video. And in actual fact, what you've just said is quite emotive, powerful pieces coming through, a lot through dance, but just another way of storytelling that, and we speak to Agnes, who's part of the panel this time, like, how do you use movement, and how do you use something that isn't necessarily based on words or a definite script, still managed to be so emotive and to move. I don't think I could have put it any better myself. You just succinctly summed up what it's like to receive all these wonderful submissions and just the strength they have and the power they have, moving around different festivals and kind of like spreading their work and spreading their message around the world. I think it's, especially in the past year, but I think it never stops being a way of connecting, just storytelling as a way to connect as humans. With that, I will bring everybody else in so they can join this chat. But before we do, I think it's only fitting that everybody at home gets to see a little glimpse of our panelists' work.
And are you both coping okay now?
We've got a room each now. Yes, we like it here.
Okay, if we could just get down to business.
You like dancing? We like dancing. We waltz. There's a club. We have to change buses. Twice. We're very happy.
Okay, basically, we just need one of you to sign as a leaseholder.
We can stay.
Who'll do the honours?
Roy's the brains. I can manage.
എൻ്റെ ജീവിതം തന്നെ അന്ന് അയാൾക്ക് ചുറ്റുമായിരുന്നു. എൻ്റെ സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ, എൻ്റെ വെളിച്ചം, എൻ്റെ പ്രണയം, എൻ്റെ ചിന്തകൾ എല്ലാം അയാളായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷേ മോളെപ്പോലെയൊക്കെ തുറന്നു പറയാനുള്ള ധൈര്യമൊന്നും എനിക്കില്ലായിരുന്നു. ആ വ്യക്തിക്ക് എന്നെ തിരിച്ച് ഇഷ്ടമായിരുന്നോ എന്ന് പോലും എനിക്കറിയില്ല. പക്ഷേ എൻ്റെ മനസ്സ് പറയുന്നു ഇഷ്ടമായിരുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾ രണ്ടുപേരും അന്ന് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും അത് പറയാൻ ധൈര്യപ്പെട്ടില്ല എന്നുള്ളതാണ് സത്യം.
They were all talking about music and stuff and like who they liked, and then they just started dumping on this other kid saying he's so dumb he doesn't know who Slade is.
Who was Slade?
Well, I had no idea, but I just jumped straight in and I was like, even I know who he is. Next thing I know, they're laughing at me and repeating what I said.
What was so funny?
Slade was a band, not a person. So I just looked like a complete idiot. Look, I didn't fit in with them. They didn't want me in their group. There's no point trying to change yourself just to fit in.
I want to talk to you. I want to scream. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. Everything we've done to each other. Everything we've been through. I forgive you. I forgive it all. I just want it to be over.
Did we think we were finally going to talk about it?
I don't hate you, Peter. But I want to. I can't.
There we go. Just a little taster of everyone's work before we get to know them a bit better. And welcome, everybody. How are we today?
Thank you. Good.
It's amazing to have you here. We are currently down one writer-director. Shanoub is I think, having some technical difficulties. So hopefully will join us in a little bit. But it's fantastic to have you all here and to be able to discuss your work and your creative process. As Morgan and I just talked about, it's been overwhelming with the amount of creativity that's come through the door this month. And I think I speak for myself, but also I think as a filmmaker, having something there so you can feel more connected with people who are on the festival circuit, with people who are creating their work right now, and having a little glimpse into your creative process is just a fantastic thing to have. We will start off very, very simply. We'll go around the room, and if you can introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about the work that you've submitted that's an official selection for London Webfest. And with Morag, just a little introduction. Morag refused to submit anything this month, I asked her, so no. But starting with my left to right, Julie, if we start with you, tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a director, producer mostly, and now a writer. This series has kind of been my debut into writing. I'm from Australia. The series that I've submitted, it's the second series of our web series called Amazing Grace, and this new series is Graceful. And it came about because my husband died very suddenly. So our series, or my series, is a fictionalized version of my daughter's life, Grace. Just after my husband died, Grace came to me and said that she was starting to lose memories of her dad, which was just heartbreaking. So he was probably Australia's most prolific television scriptwriter. Right. And so I had edited every script he'd ever written, but not written myself. Anyway, so Morag's piece at the start was so touching because I wanted to work out how to honour a storyteller. So the best way I could was to tell stories about him. Grace was only 10 when he died, and he had so much more to tell her and share with her. So our series is about when she gets stuck, she thinks about what he would do, and he's there. So the stories in the episodes are all his stories that he would have shared with his daughter if he could have been here. All the situations Grace finds herself are the situations she's been in. So literally, I just put the two together. Grace plays herself, and she's my co-writer as well because it was important for me. I didn't put words in her mouth. Mm-hmm. We started the series back in 2016. We've just shot 6 new episodes. And so I've always seen this series as like Grace's version of Boyhood, that we drop in and out of her life at different times and see how she's getting on. And it's fantastic for me. I've come from a background of directing television drama, television commercials, children's television, feature film, and to move into this arena of web series, I describe these episodes for me as a career highlight. So thank you for acknowledging the work.
No, wonderful. And so just to clarify, is Grace your actual daughter? Is this?
Yeah, and she's here. She's actually gotten up. It's 5:30 in Sydney, and she's gotten up, so I should drag her in as well.
Like above and beyond for your art is just kind of like...
absolutely. No, yes, so she's my daughter. All the stories are real, and so it's interesting when we put the series into festivals whether people pick up on that, acknowledge it. Anyway, I'm welcoming her as well. This is Grace.
Grace, hello, welcome. I mean, I'll get a little round of applause for you because your performance in the show is...
Yeah.
I mean, you're up for official selection as well for best female performance, and it's just... I love it when you find an extra level to something, that it's not just we found this fantastic actress, she was right for the part, but to know, I mean, we'll touch on this in a little bit more, Julie, but of where inspiration comes from, but to know that that's come from such a direct impact on your life, and then to write about it, but then to have yourself, Grace, also a whole series named after you. I mean, I wish I could read so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first series was called Amazing, and this series was called Graceful. So I think I'm doing pretty well.
Lovely. And how have you found it working with your mum?
I've loved it.
I think the right answer. That is the.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very lucky.
I wind her up.
No, we're very similar. We joke sometimes that we share the same brain. But we were a really close family of 3 before my dad died, and we've just become closer as a family of 2. So.
Amazing. Well, I mean, you're more than welcome to stay around if you're not trying to go back to bed quite quickly. But we will talk to you more about Amazing Grace just in a little while. I'll go around the room first, but it'd be lovely to know more about what it's like working as a duo, and what it's like being working through obviously things that events that have impacted your life. But yeah, welcome to you both, Julie and Grace.
Thank you.
So move on to you. If you have a sibling you want to bring in, then please be.
I'm Agnes. I'm a writer-director out of Los Angeles. Thank you so much for selecting my film. It really means a lot to not only me, but my entire cast and crew. I've been wanting to do this love story for a while, actually. It's heavily influenced by the work of Wong Kar-wai, a director from Hong Kong. I really love his work, and after I saw his film In the Mood for Love, I really wanted to do a love story that's very much nuanced and restrained with not a lot of lines, actually no lines at all, and kind of just focus on the movement a little bit, because I started as a ballet dancer, so that's a language that I know very well. So yeah, and it was a little bit of a challenge to find the right actors. I had quite a bit of a hard time with casting, so it took a while for us to find the right people and actually made the short finally this year. I've been wanting to do that for several years, actually. So, but yeah, that's kind of like the background.
I mean, it's a wonderful piece, as we were talking about kind of like at the beginning with Morag, how you can create beautiful work that is with no lines, you know, that is still emotive, that is still tells a story. And so am I right in thinking that the two people who are the two males, the leads, with all performing all the movement, are they trained dancers, or are they actors?
They're not. No, they're not. Actually, I still have videos of their first rehearsal in the studio. I mean, I will not share that, obviously, but it was.
No, make them look flawless. Make them look flawless. Don't try.
I mean, yeah, they're not trained dancers by any means. They're not. I wouldn't even consider them modern dancers. They don't really have any movement vocabulary at all. So we actually had a dance coach. We had a movement coach that worked with them for, I don't remember how many weeks. I think it was actually a very short process, because we wanted to shoot right away. So we didn't really have the luxury of a lot of time to prepare with them. But we did rehearse intensely in the studio. And that piece was very important for me, obviously, as a dancer. And I wanted to look right. I wanted to meet certain standards. I mean, I don't really expect them to look like professional dancers, but you know, there were things that we need to work out in the studio as far as the choreography.
Well, that intense training obviously paid off, because I would not have been, you know, it is a lovely piece about, you know, two people and their relationship, you know, people in love, but the movement just seems so natural within it. So it's, you know, a testament to the choreography and testament to yourself as a director.
Thank
Matt,
you so much.
You are up next. Tell us who you are and tell us about your work.
Yeah, I'm Matt Dickstein. I'm out of Atlanta. And time and place kind of comes from some it was a couple of years ago. My wife and I went to like New York City, and we had like this really awesome trip, and like on the last day we had like this really horrible argument, and like ended up like a block apart walking, and like this feeling of like if someone were to see us, they would never know that we even knew each other, because we were so far apart and everything, and kind of internalizing that and being, you know, worried that like we worked it out and we're great, you know. But,
that would have been a horrible story if that was not.
Thinking about like that silence and that like and kind of internalizing that and kind of feeling like we might as well have been the only two people in existence, but we still were not communicating, and internalizing that and thinking about like what could have happened or anything like that or whatever. And that's kind of where started kind of coming up with that, and like a couple other things that were kind of going on, and wrote several scripts out of that, and that was kind of the one that really kind of stuck to me as being something that was something that I wanted to put into the world and kind of get out of me and everything. So we actually, it was really great. We, my parents live in a cabin, crazy enough. And they were out of town for the weekend. And so it was like, all my friends just happened to be film industry people. So we just all drove up to their cabin and made a film over a couple of days, and also like got to like hang out and get really close and just be, you know, like a family, like making a film, which is my favorite thing. Like it's kind of become like the gold standard for production for me is that specific set. and it means the world that it's finally like out in the world. And thank you guys again, like, you know, for having
it's a wonderful piece. It's cliched to say, I think, to say that the setting is another character in the story, but it definitely feels that way, that you are so intently focused on this couple, and it's such an intense, I mean, anyone who's been through difficult arguments or breakups knows that feeling of just, I mean, it said there in the clip, I can't. And I thought that was a wonderful way to end, you know, the pieces from all of you, which is just that feeling of, I need to say something and I need to say it now. But location-wise, that's well chosen. It definitely just adds another layer to it. And there's a similar feeling, I think, to everyone who's been invited to the panel today, which is, even though you know, time and place, even though it wasn't silent and there is a script, there's such a silence to it, even though there's talking throughout, even though there's internal monologue, you know, or conversations had in the past. Similar to Agnes, where there's nothing being said, but there's everything being said. And with yourself, Julie, it's such a, even though there's a lot of chaos happening in Grace's life, there's such silence to it, especially the moments with her dad and the moments of, you know, it's strange to say because they are all very different pieces, but there was a feeling of both chaos and silence, that both of them. I don't know if I've expressed that well enough, but it's a very much a cohesive panel here. I would have said the same for Shanoop. I wish he was here. His work is a beautiful two-hander between an elderly gentleman and his carer. Morag, finally you are up. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, goodness. So I was so immersed in listening to everybody else and really enjoying everybody's stories that I've kind of gone, oh, I've got to speak now. Yeah, I think because of everybody speaking about individual things, it's like, for me, I think, you know, I've I've been a mother for the last few years, and so, you know, when I was watching Grace, I was like, oh wow, I really want my daughter to see this, you know, because it was so full of stories that are going to be useful to her, because she's not 10 yet, but you know, I just kind of felt so much resonance there, and so much kind of, there was a you know, really profound feelings. And I think as a filmmaker, I think what I've realized is that, you know, I'm not a great intellectual. I just operate through emotions. And
we're on.
And I think, yeah. So I think that's what I've always done, is like, you know, I've had a very bumpy kind of weird career, and it's you know, seem to swing from vine to vine. But I think the one thing that connects what I do is the emotional aspect of it, and I think that's what drives me, is trying to kind of find that emotional connection with other human beings, because I mean, it's really kind of hit me, especially in relation to the pandemic, that, you know, we need that so much more than ever. You know, we need that sense of connection through storytelling. We need to remember what it is to be human, what it is to hurt, what it is to love, what it is to cry. I mean, I have to say, in watching, I've cried quite a few times. So, you know, I was triggered, and I've had a lovely rainbow spectrum of feelings in watching these films, and it just kind of because I haven't watched films for quite a while, just because I've been so busy coping, I think, and it's lovely just to, you know, let yourself feel and give yourself space to feel, because that's where we remember in that space what it is to be a human being. And I feel like there's the pre-pandemic me, and then there's a post-pandemic me, hopefully. And I think that's, you know, I think it's going to inform a lot of us, you know, what we're going through as a human race, as a species, and where we're going. Because I want to make different stuff now. You know, I want to make stuff which, I mean, I've tried my best to make stuff which is meaningful to me, but that has absolutely cohered into, you know, I'm not going to do work which just for the sake of it. I'm just, you know, it's really important to dig deep and into our humanity and kind of you know, get to the core of that, whatever that is for us, because obviously all our stories are different.
I think that's, you know, there's some wonderful points to take away from that. And one of them is actually, as a filmmaker, where can that get lost sometimes? Where are you a filmmaker and where are you a storyteller? And sometimes work is work, and, you know, it's what you do. And other times it is, and I'm always shocked, should I say, that when it comes to the film festival, work that comes through, I'm the same. I you know, currently we're coming out of a lockdown here in London, so as such, my partner has her office next door and I have my office here, and I'll come through with tears streaming down my eyes, and she's like, "What did you watch this time?" and I could never have told her that at the start of that film that it would have left me just going, I just need to sit for a few moments, because that was, it came, you know, it hit me, side-blinded me. And the same, as you mentioned about Grace, about your work, Julie, the both of you, that is definitely something Morag and I were chatting about. It's such a great piece. I have two nieces who are growing up, and it's the kind of thing that, to be fair, I would have loved to see when I was a teenager, you know, just to go, it's all right, you know, it's okay. But for growing, I think the climate is changing definitely, and that empowerment towards teens, but towards specifically females, of going, like, this is, you know, here's where you can find strength. You don't have to fit in, you don't have to, but it's such a obviously finding out now that it comes from truth and it comes from, you know, inspiration in life, but it really is something that can be, it should be seen as some kind of, like, get into the curriculum, just to get it seen by every teen to know.
That was kind of our intention, I guess, is that the issues are small, but they're also universal. And even though it's a very specific, started as a very personal project, it's been really fascinating with both the first series and the second series. When people of all ages see it, they kind of go, that was what it was like when I was a teenager, and all this sort of things. And I think it's a really a great show, I think, for people to watch as families, because if you can't talk about certain things, it opens that conversation up. And what's also, I think, for me, really precious about it is it's told honestly and authentically through the voice of the person who's in front of the camera, and that can really be faked. So, yeah.
I think that's a great kind of segue into opening up of for everyone. How did you approach writing your scripts? In the case of Agnes, how did you approach forming, you know, a piece that doesn't necessarily have a script, but how was that for you? Where your inspiration came from, how you kind of executed it, and how the finished product, I suppose, how different was that from what you first envisaged? There's a lot there, but, you know, unpack it as you wish.
I think for me, because of my background as a dancer, I see everything, the lens that I see everything through is basically movement. I actually think that when I watch films with dialogue, even, I look at it as it's a movement between the two actors, or between the people who are executing the scene. So everything to me is movement. So movement needs to come first for me, which is why for this particular piece, it took a while for me to make the film, because I didn't really quite have any idea in the beginning as far as what I want to do with two people who are not necessarily professional dancers, to tell a story through movement. So I didn't really quite know how to do that for this particular piece. But as soon as I get in the studio, that's typically when everything becomes crystal clear to me, is when I see how they move, and then everything else, the narrative and what I want to do with the rest of the story for the remainder of the 8 minutes or 9 minutes or however long it is, it just becomes very clear to me for some reason in the studio. So when I have the narrative, then everything else just falls into place. I don't know how else to say it, but everything else just follows, because you have like an arc that you need to follow. But at the same time, I like to keep everything pretty open-ended. So we did a lot of improvisation work in the studio. Most of the dialogue in my films, which is really not a lot, but if there is a dialogue, it's 100% improvised. So I work a lot with actors in terms of developing what their gut reaction to certain situations and certain things. And then we built the story arc from that point. So I guess if you look at it that way, it's the roles are pretty much customized to who's in front of me. I don't really think it would feel pretty unnatural for me. And in fact, that was how I was making movies in Seattle before I moved to Los Angeles. I would have a script, I would cast the actors based on the script, and it just felt a little bit backwards for me. I think that it would work for a lot of directors out there, but for me, I'd like to work from a instinctual place, and it has to be in the moment and that very moment. And so a script and casting people based on roles that you already have in mind for them felt a little bit limiting to me. So when I moved to LA, I basically changed my entire process. I mean, like, completely. It's now I'm working the opposite way than how I used to work, and so far so good. So
and do you find then that the piece you end up with, because of that improvisation, because of the kind of almost collaboration with your artist, is it how close do you find the end result to what you first envisaged, to what the film you needed to make?
Surprisingly, it was very, very close. I was pleasantly surprised. There weren't that many changes or things that we had to adapt, I guess, because of the people who are in front of me, which is why I think casting, especially for a project like mine, is the most important thing for me. When you find the right people, and it's not even necessarily when you find the right actors, but when you find the right people for your project, how they live their life, how they behave in real life. I think everything else just kind of fell into place. At least that's how it was for me. Yeah, we didn't really change a lot of the narrative or the things that I had in mind, but in the process of making it, I would always ask them, like, how would you approach this situation? Like, how would the actors, even just small gestures like lifting their hands or, putting their arm on the other actor, I would always ask them, instead of me telling them, this is what I want you to do, I would always ask them, how would you internalize this if you're in this situation? So.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's led to a more natural piece, I think, because of that. You've got two people who are obviously actors but interacting as a couple, but it's made that much more believable because you're not forcing, a movement onto something that can stick out quite like a sore thumb on screen. Thank you, Matt. With yourself, where did the inspiration from this script come from, and how was it, what was your approach to writing that script and kind of executing the whole piece?
I guess it just kind of came out. Like, that's how I feel, like how I feel about story, like a lot of people. And I think that there's no right or wrong way necessarily to tell the story that's inside of you. But my approach is not necessarily to like write out all the beats and then write the dialogue or anything like that. I kind of just spill it. And that one, I think I was actually, I work, I do like full-time video work, and I was at like the office and was just kind of like editing, and I was like, I can't focus on like this thing. So I just wrote it really quick actually in my notebook. And then kind of over the next couple like weeks and months, took it to like script writing software, and let my wife like she's like the person who reads everything and gives me like the best notes. She's not like a filmmaker, but like she gets it. So it's like sometimes like when you show like other filmmakers, like they don't pick up on things that like, which is weird to say because like usually filmmakers like pick up on filmy things, but like when you show somebody who's not necessarily a filmmaker a film, they'll pick up on like little things that's like, that didn't make sense to me because I'm not a filmmaker, like that doesn't really work. So she reads everything and she sees like all my drafts and everything like that. And then kind of like knowing, I knew exactly who I wanted to cast in it, which was a very fortunate place to be in. I definitely can relate to going through a lot of casting trouble, but this was like definitely wanted like specific people who I knew really well that I could kind of like push, or like people who I knew would improvise really well, and it just so happens that these two people are also like very close friends. So they actually took the script and did a lot of work on their own end without me, which was awesome. And then kind of just like every take where there's dialogue, we had like kind of our roadmap. But then I was like, look, if you're feeling something, if you're, you know, if there's something that you want to say, like I felt like at that point, like we all kind of had our own vision of like the characters and who the characters were and everything, and so they were able to add things and take things away, or say like, I don't think I would do this or say this, and we just had it was definitely like, you know, heavy, but it was also like a lot of fun kind of going through that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a unique situation to be in, where I feel very glad for you, because that I would argue that your pieces the right cast can make or break it. It's so heavily weighed on believing that these two people have they're done. That's it. You're exhausted for them. Do you know what I mean? You just and it's, you know, it's amazing how a script, how can production can live or die on the people telling that story in front of the camera, no matter how much hard work has gone on behind. So to know those people as well, hopefully that was a positive experience, because you know, we've all worked with friends and it doesn't necessarily work out as that. So
the interesting thing about those two characters actually was that, you know, sometimes you come away with the sense of good and bad, and I think within that you know, you don't blame one or the other of them, but you empathize with both, and I think that's a really fantastic quality, that, you know, you've got that rich feeling, that rich response, which is like you can completely you so identify with both of them actually.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. I found myself flipping between and kind of going, leave her alone, and then you're like, actually, you're just exhausted as well. Like you know, plus you've had to walk up this hill. Like there's no. Speaking of casting, let's go back to yourself, Julie, and Grace, and inspiration as well. So, when you were saying that the scripts came from your late husband and dad, is that something that was ideas that he had written down, or was it inspiration from being a wife for so many years, from knowing that would be his, you know?
Well, it's tricky. I mean, obviously this is kind of our grief project, and it was healing. And when I said I wanted to honor a storyteller, well, he wasn't a park bench kind of guy or plant a tree. He was a storyteller. So it was when web series were first really coming out and taking over that I thought, what better way to create something, a story that will be out there forever. And it was never my intention to be the writer of the series. In fact, I originally asked a lot of his writing friends to write episodes for us that we could use. And one of the colleagues said to me, no, you have to write it. These are your stories that you need to tell. So I was actually pushed forward, and forever grateful, because I'm really comfortable in the directing hat, but I've gained so much out of writing the series and writing with Grace. So there were nothing ever written down by Jeff. What they were little situations that Grace was encountering, and then I kind of went, well, what would he say? How would he talk us through the situation, you know, if he had the opportunity? So, and again, back to Agnes, I agree, casting is everything. That's my director's hat back on. And so at one point with the series, someone suggested, well, will you make the series if people like it, but they don't think Grace is a good enough actor? And I looked at them, was like, no, these are her stories. Like, you just don't do that. With the actor who plays her dad, he's actually a taller and younger version of my husband, so I figure he would approve. And when Grace and he first met, they he himself is a dad, and he's very similar to my husband. In fact, some people asked, you know, did he watch movies that my husband in, because he was also an actor? And no, there was a real natural connection. And then we were always concerned that Grace wasn't out in the world on her own, because Grace is the only person who can see the character of her dad. So we needed a mum that was like the safe harbour for Grace. So the actress that we cast to play Grace's mum, I couldn't be happier with. Like, you know, she's one of Australia's best, and ironically, she played my husband's daughter at Grace's age when I just graduated film school. So she's kind of been in our lives for a long time.
I mean, there's so much to unpack from that. That's amazing.
I know. Don't go there. In terms of the creative process, Grace, what we do is to come up with the ideas.
Yeah, we brainstorm like the situations, and then we like talk about what stories we think Dad would share.
I write the first draft, and then we write all the rest together.
Yeah, we go through lots and lots and lots of drafts, and then also we like to do workshops with our other actors, and they also bring their own ideas and suggestions to the pieces, and they put the script in their own words as well. So yeah, we kind of draft up until like a couple of days before the shoot, and yeah.
I have the first thing I have to do is applaud you for that casting, because if ever, the sentence, if there's a movie made of my life, you want a younger, more handsome version of yourself in their place. So you've done your husband proud. That's
that's a responsibility, and also for the actor when you say hi, would you be interested in playing my dead husband? And step into the clothes he wore, or all the into his house with his daughter. There's a huge responsibility. So I'm so grateful he said yes.
Well, I have a lasting impression of your late husband being rugged yet soft and charming, affable, approachable yet slight mystery to him. So you've done very, very well.
A bit like yourself, Saul.
Look, you can come back. This is amazing. Thank you. So the bit that I find that seems overwhelming is that there seems half of it that could be very cathartic, this ability to work through emotions, to put down your feelings, and also, still have a piece of your partner and your father still there. The other side seems like an insurmountable, how do you work through that, and that by yourselves, and then go on set and convey that to other people when it has such a close, place in your heart?
I think we're working through the scripts. Actually, that's quite emotional for me when I have to do research and talk to my husband's family and friends and sort of say, do a bit of research of what he would be like. The script writing is the hard part for me, but once it's down, I feel very excited, and to share them with the crew is really great. The crew can get quite emotional at times, but for me, it's like, I feel like it's one of the things of the grieving process as well. When you talk their name and speak of the person you lost, it's like bringing them back to life for you, and that's kind of where that works. And for us as well, my husband, Grace's dad, was an incredibly funny, smart man, and so I just feel like, we're honouring him, and that's such a privilege and something that, and a
lot of the stories in the series are quite funny, like from my dad, and so there's a lot of joy, actually. I mean, aside from the catharsis, there is a lot of joy in the script writing process, when also some of these stories, I'm hearing them for the first time because Dad wasn't able to share them with me. And so it's I guess, bittersweet, because they're such amazing stories and they're very funny, a lot of them. But yeah, I feel lucky that I get to learn about them. And also, I think we also, as the years have gone by, this is just our lives now, and that's kind of what it's become. And so it's day by day having to get used to not having him in our lives, and this is the best way that we can, as Mum said, bring him alive.
And how was it? I mean, obviously you were both part. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was going to say, one of the episodes that we made, which is prior to this current series, was about Father's Day, and it's like, how do you celebrate an event like that when you don't have a father? And so the whole series was, Grace never wanted to be poor me, but basically acknowledge the fact that there are people like her out there, and no matter whether you're Grace's age or our age, those events and those anniversaries are still hard.
It's I mean, for both of you, from being a writer director of the piece, but also with yourself, Grace, performing in it as well, what was that like? I mean, have you done any acting before, I suppose, is the first question.
Not really. The series Mum's Amazing Grace was kind of my first. I mean, I'd grown up around Mum and Dad who'd worked in the industry, so I had a bit of an idea. But the first kind of little snippet we filmed of the first series, I had to walk out of a house, and it felt almost impossible. The whole thing you were saying about movement actors, I could not work out how to move my arms and legs in the right way to walk. So I've definitely grown over the last bit of filming. And also from working on the web series, I've been able to do like other theatre work from that, and that's also grown my acting ability. So those kind of experiences were what I was able to bring to, I think, this new series of Amazing Grace.
Amazing. It's quite funny that you can give someone dialogue and it's quite normal, but then you're like, how do you hold a mug? How does work? Like suddenly the most mundane thing, you just start walking like a robot, just going, I don't know. How does one human? How does this work? That's wonderful. It's genuinely one of my favorite parts of the Q&As is just expanding on these worlds that you already think you know, and then from each of you finding out that's just one small, it just expands out. Morag, it'd be great to talk to you about. So and correct me if I'm wrong, you started early in your career writing and directing. And have you moved away from that just towards the direction part, or are you still writing your own work?
Well, I'm still writing my own work. I'm writing, but I became a single parent, so everything kind of fell apart. So I've kind of continued with teaching in the meantime. But at the moment, I'm actually doing a project which we're still trying to get funding for. But it's like I'm working with a composer who has made this incredible piece of music, which we're going to make a film around. And we've started talking to scientists within the creation of this film. So it's the theme is climate change, and so we're reflecting on the huge expanses of time that have taken to get to this point. And it's based on the homeland of the composer, which is Caithness, which is the far north of Scotland. So we're going to use Impressionism to tell the story of evolution. It can be done, we think, but in like a very impressionistic way. And so we started talking to some scientists who are looking at climate change, and one in particular who's come up with a guy called Stuart Kaufman, who's come up with something called the TAP equation, which just shows how when you get to a certain degree of complexity, that complexity becomes exponential. And he is in the process of proving that economic growth has got to that exponential place. So we're trying to portray that in a visual way. So the thing is, this is kind of like the films like Koyaanisqatsi, Baraka. So it's all kind of told in a visual sense to music. So we're creating a visual narrative. So I'm going into a completely new territory. It's not drama, it's not documentary, it's kind of something in between. It's a visual construction, but it tells the story of complexity and how complexity builds and grows. So there's a bit of science in it, because I've always loved science, and I'm a science boffin that doesn't know terribly much, but I'm passionate about it. And I really wanted to do work that kind of reflected where we are at the moment and creates a sense of a human understanding, because our kind of main issue was to jump out of the human scale and kind of try and look at life in a different scale. Like when you go microscopic or macroscopic, you suddenly see that there are patterns in life which repeat and are cyclical, and actually start telling a story of interconnection. And that's what I was really, because I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of interconnection, and that can be told visually. I don't know if this makes any sense at all.
It does.
It makes amazing sense.
Yeah, it's when you were talking, I was like, but how? But how is this story just expanded of what you meant? It's like, but obviously I was like, great, but how? Like how how do you tell a story that is that on that scale? But through music, through movement, and but still get the science part in as well. That's the.
Well, this is the thing. Talking to the scientists actually gave us a real window. I mean, we were very lucky to have this connection with these scientists, and suddenly it's kind of like opened up this whole dialogue between science and art, and it's given us the right tools to be able to go forward. You see, so I'm just personally just really obsessed with these dialogues that you can have, and I've become so kind of obsessed with the need for communication, because we can't live an isolated life, and the pandemic's kind of sort of flagged that up.
Yeah.
So we've had to, if you're prevented from doing something, you adapt, and so you find a new way. It's necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing. So it's forced me into, the composer and I, we work over Skype and we edit with Skype. So, it's very, very early days for this project, but it's, my passion for trying to sort of be involved in something positive towards the climate crisis is really, driving it. So, we've yet to get proper funding, but hopefully we're on the right path to that, because it's something that we all need to talk about. But I just love the fact that hopefully we can find a way to sort of show that sense of human interconnection that we all have, and that we're actually this part of nature rather than something separate from it.
It's wonderful. I'm glad you used that word interconnection, and it definitely is something that I think shows up, in all your work, but with yourself as well, Morag. For anyone who isn't Scottish, home hits home for me. It's interconnection between individual stories that are all of a whole, of people who are in need, of people who are wanting for normality, or for love, or for connection with the world, and for their place to be all right. And I feel like that covers the gamut of all of you here. Like, all your pieces have something deeply interconnecting. And I suppose you could say that for a lot of filmmaking, that yes, it's about the human condition, and yes, but I think especially with the five of you, in fact, Grace, I'd be wrong to not include you as well, of creating work that is about showing that human condition, that showing that need for interconnection, for love, for the human need for wanting. So to hear that Morag that's going on into, like, as you say, that's come out of the world we're living in, it's such an amazing thing to see that is the direction that it's gone with, because I don't think, including yourself maybe, that you could have ever guessed that's where your storytelling would end up.
I don't think any of us could have guessed. I think that the pandemic has challenged us all in many, many ways. It's kind of, my little girl is bereft because she doesn't get to cuddle her granny, and then when I said, oh, granny's going to get her second vaccination, she burst into tears. I'll get to cuddle my granny, and it's just these really simple things that, touching means so much, and kindness means so much. Oh my God, kindness means a huge amount, and the way that somebody can just make your day by smiling, I think we kind of appreciate, we have a heightened awareness of all the simple things that actually make a big difference to our lives.
Wonderful.
And that's what I love about a lot of the films, is they just go back to that really, really fundamental human place of the need for connection and interaction. It's just, there's been some I feel really honored and bowled over to have seen this work.
It's I don't say it lightly. It's been amazing to have you, and also because I've seen your work over the years, and it's so nice to have your opinion involved, and to have your insight, and also I shouldn't say it, but when I see something in something, and you've been emailing me the past few days and going, oh, have you seen this? Have you noticed this? I'm like, oh, good. Like, it gives validity. It gives to the opinions and to the emotions I've had. So it's really lovely to have that kind of an extra bit of communication, as small as it may have been between us. It's been really nice. We are quickly running out of time. This has been so lovely, though. I literally have about 100 questions we have never even close to got to. I think we have a lot of filmmakers watch these who are creating their first projects, or who are in the middle of trying to get their short film, their web series, their animation off the ground. If you had a bit of advice for for either first-time filmmakers or people in that middle of that struggle, what would it be like? What would do you have anything that would make getting their short film off the ground easier? Putting pen to paper, picking up a camera. It's quite a general question, but if there's anything you've learned the hard way, or whether you've just went, this is how to get started, I think people watching would love to hear it.
But
I'd like to say, don't take no for an answer. I was told with making our series that it's very hard to get children to watch things online. What the? I just think keep going, no matter what. Just show up, keep going. You have to push through, no matter what feedback you hear negative. It's your story, and I think collectively we're all storytellers, and it's almost like you have to. Storytelling is the basis of the whole thing.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
Well, I think,
sorry. Go
ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark.
The only thing is, I think I learned more from my mistakes than I did from my successes. I mean, when I failed, it hurt so badly. It hurts a lot when you fail. And I think that the thing is, it's just like you gotta, in a way you've got to fail. It's kind of, that sounds wrong. I had to fail. I'll take that one for myself. But it's like, that's how you kind of find out what works and where you need to kind of get better. So for me personally, and I can see people who are like amazing filmmakers who just seem to succeed continuously, but that was not me. I've failed a lot, and I know that I've managed to like dust myself off and take a lot from that and then move forward. And I think that for me the privilege is to make the film. It's like they're not all gonna win awards or do great things, but it's like to keep pushing forward and to keep finding what it is that you're interested in. And to not be afraid to fail as well, because it's just a part of life. And I think the Grace series has just so many resonances about the difficulties that you have to push through to get to the next stage. So I would recommend everybody watches that, because it's got life lessons for everybody. And what a lovely dad. Oh my God, I think we all wish we had a dad like that. So yeah.
To take away from that, I'm 40 this year, so to be like, oh God, I still feel like a teenager that's learning stuff. This is crazy. I couldn't, emphasize that more. I think, if you get a chance, watch everyone's work, but Grace does have a lot of pockets of just like lessons to learn. You're like, oh yeah, thank you for that. Who's next as we come to the clues?
I actually think that authenticity is probably the most important thing for new filmmakers. It's very, very tempting early on to make a film that's going to fit into a category that's popular, that's current, that you think will be accepted by the festivals. I think that when I watch a film, I want to know who you are as a filmmaker. I want to know what are your experiences that are unique to you. So I think at the end of the day, your film should say something about you, as well as, exploring this very important concept that everybody has been talking about, interconnection between human beings. But at the same time, it has to be seen through your perspective. That's what you have that other filmmakers don't have, because we all have different stories to tell. So I would just stick to the stories that matter the most to you. That's one of the things that I gained from looking at all the clips before the interview, is that all of these stories look very personal. They're personal stories to the filmmaker. And when you have a finished product that's beautifully shot, well acted, but it doesn't necessarily say anything about you, I think there's always an element missing there. So being really true to yourself and authentic to who you are as a person, as a filmmaker, is extremely important. It's the most important thing, at least for me.
Wonderful. And Matt, round us out with a little bit of advice. Go for it.
Sure. Kind of what everybody else is saying, but like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make a film with what you have. Like, don't worry about Like, I feel like, and I mean, I definitely get caught up in like, oh, I need a Red and I need an Ari, or I need like the nicest microphones and all this stuff. But like, I think if you have an iPhone and an idea, you can make a really great film. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to not be doing what people 10 years ahead of you are doing. Like, if this is your first one, just make it, have fun, enjoy it, you know? And yeah, like I think it's
I really agree with that point that that Matt just made. I think you learn the craft by doing. So go out there and make your production, make your movie. So start somewhere, and it doesn't matter what the final project is, looks like. It really doesn't matter at all. And I think it was Morag who said that, the privilege is in the storytelling. I mean, we are so blessed to be able to wake up every day and tell the stories of our lives. I mean, like how lucky we are to be able to do that. Yeah.
All I can say is thank you so much, all of you, for joining me. I told you at the beginning of this that before we came on that an hour just flies by, but I think it's never been truer than this. It's been an absolute joy to have you all here, to hear about your work and to hear about the backstories of it all, and just to we had time just for a slight glimpse into your process as well. I could be here for another 3 hours.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I just want to say there's never been a better reason to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to meet all these amazing people. We're on the other side of the world, but I just want to know more about everyone. And so thank you. It's been such a privilege to meet you all.
Yeah, please do show each other support, watch each other's work, follow each other on Instagram. It's my favorite part of one of my favorite parts of the festival is seeing kind of little communities at each festival of these people who are kind of almost doing the circuit together, but you become this little family for a while, and you're all in it together, and the same faces pop up on Q&As and the same, and it's really nice to be able to show that support. Please do stick around. I'll talk to you in the green room in just a moment. As Agnes said, like, it's great to watch clips of your work, and I think the best way to round this out is to show those clips again. It's a very different thing from seeing it kind of raw at the beginning and then having an hour in your company and being able to see actually the work you're producing and put that work to a face. So I will speak to you in just a few moments. Please do stay. But before then, I'll play your clips again. Thank you so much for taking part, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
And are you both coping okay now?
We've got a room each now. Yes, we like it here.
Okay, if we could just get down to business.
We like dancing. We like dancing. We waltz. There's a club. We have to change buses. Twice. We're very happy.
Okay, basically, we just need one of you to sign as a leaseholder.
We can stay.
Who'll do the honours?
Roy's the brains. I can manage.
എൻ്റെ ജീവിതം തന്നെ അന്ന് അയാൾക്ക് ചുറ്റുമായിരുന്നു. എൻ്റെ സ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ, എൻ്റെ വെളിച്ചം, എൻ്റെ പ്രണയം, എൻ്റെ ചിന്തകൾ എല്ലാം അയാളായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷേ മോളെപ്പോലെയൊക്കെ അത് തുറന്നു പറയാനുള്ള ധൈര്യമൊന്നും എനിക്കില്ലായിരുന്നു. ആ വ്യക്തിക്ക് എന്നെ തിരിച്ച് ഇഷ്ടമായിരുന്നോ എന്ന് പോലും എനിക്കറിയില്ല. പക്ഷേ എൻ്റെ മനസ്സ് പറയുന്നു ഇഷ്ടമായിരുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾ രണ്ടുപേരും അന്ന് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും അത് പറയാൻ ധൈര്യപ്പെട്ടില്ല എന്നുള്ളതാണ് സത്യം.
And they were all talking about music and stuff and like who they liked, and then they just started dumping on this other kid saying, he's so dumb, he doesn't know who Slade is.
Who was Slade?
Well, I had no idea, but I just jumped straight in and I was like, even I know who he is. Next thing I know, they're laughing at me. and repeating what I said.
What was so funny?
Slade was a band, not a person. So I just look like a complete idiot. Look, I didn't fit in with them, and they didn't want me in their group. There's no point trying to change yourself just to fit in.
I want to talk to you. I want to scream. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. Everything we've done to each other. Everything we've been through. I forgive you. I forgive it all. I just want it to be over.
Did we think we were finally going to talk about it?
I don't hate you, Peter. But I want to. I can't.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for another round of Q&A for the London Web Fest. Don't forget, if you've got a web series, a short film, animation, student film, any piece at all that you'd like us to see, then you can submit at filmfreeway.com/LondonWebFest or at londonwebfest.co.uk. This month we have new guest judge Joan Gratt. She is an Oscar-winning animator, and she will be perusing all your wonderful work. If you haven't already, go and check out our virtual festival. Whilst we are in COVID times, we have virtual screenings every month of all our award-winning work. So from the 24th to the 25th, this weekend only, you can watch all of our March winners. That is it for the time being. Thank you for being a part of this fantastic Q&A. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. And as I said, I could be here for another few hours chatting with our filmmakers. And thank you to Morag for being not only a fantastic panelist, but also just a phenomenal judge. It has been an absolute joy to have her. Until next time, please do take care, and we hope to see you again next month. Bye.